Hi guys, and welcome to the first section. In this section we're going to talk about CPR. We will start with this video about the intro to CPR. The reason why we're doing this video is because there is some essential information that you guys need to know before we can dive into how to actually perform it, as well as some statistics, because honestly I'm a pretty big nerd and I think these statistics will help you understand the importance of CPR. Okay, so let's dive in. Okay, let's start with the essential information and let's start with the autonomy. At the end of the day, our body is built from cells. Now, these cells need a constant supply of oxygen to function. However, if you take a bunch of different cells and you put them together, then you will get an organ. And if you take a bunch of different organs and you put them together, then you will get a system. Lastly, if you will take a bunch of systems and you put them together, then voila, you got the human body. Now, the human body is basically what happens when you just take a bunch of different systems. So as you can guess, it includes a lot of different systems. You have the digestive system, the reproduction system, the skeletal systems. There is a bunch of different systems. However, there are three systems which are the most important in our body, and they create something that is called the triangle of life. Now, let me move for a sec so you will see. I will put the triangle of life right here behind me, but generally the triangle of life is built from the three most important systems, which are the circulatory system, the respiratory system, and the nervous system. Now, the thing about these three systems is that they depend on each other and that they supply each other. So that means that if for some reason one of these three systems will collapse, that would mean that the other two will collapse shortly after as well. And after these three systems will collapse, that means that all the other systems in the body will also collapse, which would mean our patient would die. Now, our goal with CPR is to make sure that these three systems continue to function and that they will not collapse until our patient can get to an ambulance and until he can get to the hospital safely to fix these systems. Now, our goal with CPR isn't to fix those systems. We're not trying to get him from being sick to being healthy. However, our goal is to make sure that his situation will not get worse so he can get safely to the hospital and get treated. Now, the way we do this with CPR is by replacing the heart system, the circulatory system. Usually when a person needs CPR, it is because of a cardiac arrest. And that means that his circulatory system has collapsed. His heart stopped beating. Now, what we want to do with CPR is we want to make sure that we keep the blood flow in his body. We're basically performing chest compressions, so we will be his fake heart, so the other systems in the body will not collapse and he could get safely to the hospital to get treated. When our heart stops beating, in medical language, that is called clinical death. Now, clinical death is basically that thing we see in the movies where the heart rate monitor, that spikes that we see beating, stops and you see a flat line. That is what we call clinical death, and it is not permanent death. We can still save our patient by performing CPR on him. However, if our patient has clinical death for about 4 to 6 minutes, then he will start to receive permanent brain damage. The thing about our brain is that cells in the brain and in the heart actually, they can't regenerate. So if our patient has waited 4 to 6 minutes without getting any help, then he will start to get permanent damage. Now, the time it takes on average for an ambulance to arrive in the United States is somewhere around 8 minutes. And this can go all the way up to 14 minutes if we're talking about rural areas. So if you think about it, that means that on the average situation, If our patient did not receive CPR by a bystander until the ambulance arrives, then he is basically guaranteed to not survive. Okay, enough for the statistics. Cardiovascular diseases are currently the #1 cause of death in the world. Around 500,000 of Americans die each year of a cardiac arrest. It is currently said that if a person did not receive CPR, then his survival chances are only at about 10%. And I'm guessing it's because the ambulance can arrive quickly in some situations. On top of that, only 30% of Americans know how to perform CPR, which means that 70% will feel helpless if they will need to do so. And lastly, and I think this is the most important statistic, is that 80% of cardiac arrests happens within our homes. Simply put, that means that if you're about to perform CPR, you are most likely to save someone you love. Okay, and that is basically it for this video. Now, my goal with this video wasn't to scare you guys, but I wanted to make sure that you know that first, cardiac arrests can happen, and second, you can totally help your patient by knowing how to perform CPR on him. Now, don't worry guys, I will make sure that you guys will feel confident and you will know how to save people if you will need to. I hope you enjoyed this video. That is basically it, and I will see you in the next one. See you soon.